Hello, my name is Hannah Hemberger, and this is my EDL 850 Module 12 case study over the copyright in the computer, regulations governing technology. In summary, our case review is about a small rural school and how the PTA raised money for the teachers to purchase software programs for their new computer lab at the school. The teachers were getting very great use out of the lab and software programs, but they wanted to expand on this and have the programs in their classrooms for individual use, supplementing their lessons that they were teaching. The library and media specialist, Mrs. Lynn, was asked to make copies of the programs for the teachers, which she did end up doing. One teacher, Mrs. Brandon, was uncomfortable accepting the copy as it was against copyright law and took the issue to the principal, Mr. Sample. When Mr. Sample got involved, he told Mrs. Lynn she would have to collect and destroy the discs, but she did not take that lightly, saying she was doing her best to stretch the money that was fundraised for the school. I felt like it was very important to just review copyright law for this case study. So the copyright laws of the United States make it illegal for anyone to duplicate copyrighted materials without permission. Any duplication of copyrighted materials must be done with permission of the copyright holder or within the bounds of fair use. And when using any materials for fair use, there's 4 key components to consider, and that's the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount of the portion used, and the effect of the use upon the potential market. Legal and ethical issues within this case study. So Mrs. Lynn and the teachers have taken the copies and have now put their school in danger of serious consequences by the software program for violation of copyright. Ethically, Mrs. Lynn knew that she was violating copyright law, but she did it anyway to save the school money. Now, she never said if she knew the school had a policy or not, or if she was aware of the policy, but just in general from teaching, she knew she was violating the law. So does this action or situation contravene an existing law? Yes, they are breaking the U.S. Copyright Act law. There was no breach of contract and no discrimination present within this case study. In synthesizing this case study, Mrs. Lynn, the school library/media specialist, has made copies of a computer program that violates copyright law and has handed out the copies to multiple teachers without the principal knowing until after the fact. The facts within this case study for people include Mr. Sample, the principal, Mrs. Lynn, the library and media specialist, Mrs. Brandon and Mrs. Williams are both teachers involved in this situation, and then the PTA, which is the Parents Association for the school. This case study took place at St. Regis School, which is located about 25 miles outside of a big city. It is a very rural community in that they only have 2 grocery stores, a drugstore, and a few other small businesses that the community members rely on to do most of their shopping within the town. They do receive a little bit of money from the state to support St. Regis School, but most of their money comes from fundraising by the PTA organization. Within the St. Regis School, it is a K through 8 school. After students finish 8th grade, they hop on a bus and go to the big city for high school. Their enrollment at this school is about 450 students. So they have 2 teachers per grade level, 2 special education teachers, and then a library media specialist teacher who also is turns out to be the computer lab teacher when that lab gets put into place. So could this decision be damaging to stakeholders or the community? Yes, this can cause a lawsuit with the school district and the computer software program for violation of copyright law, which would cost the school district money, that they don't have, or not that they don't have it, that they don't budget for per se within their yearly budget. This does affect the school staff and the students, the Board of Education, the PTA, and community members. In this situation, the principal has not gone to a superintendent yet or the school board to discuss the issue at this point. I think that what really needs to be learned about in this situation, if the school does have a copyright policy and if it was reviewed with all staff. With that in regard, though, I do feel like that there is enough information to make a decision regarding this case study. So here are my possible options that I came up with. Number one is to take no action. Mrs. Lynn continues making copies of the teachers. They use them in their classroom. Mr. Sample just tells her, don't do no more, but life goes on as normal, and students are using the program within their classrooms and the teachers are supplementing their instruction. Number two is to get the copies that Mrs. Lynn made and destroy them. No harm, no foul kind of situation. So the copies from the teachers would be destroyed. Mrs. Lynn would get scrutinized for her wrongdoing, but really life goes on as planned and nothing is happening at that point for that option. And then the third one is contacting the computer software program and explaining the situation. Within this would be offering to pay them for copies made, and then assure them the school policies will be revamped and gone over with the school. Send Mrs. Lynn and staff to copyright law training, and then write Mrs. Lynn and the other teachers up in their teacher evaluations for the ethical reasons of violating copyright law. In evaluating all of these options and looking at the pros and cons, the first one of taking no action, the students get to use the software program. It enhances their learning. The teachers are happy because it's available to them still. The cons of this, though, is that the school is violating copyright laws and if caught could result in major monetary fines. The second option of getting the copies Mrs. Lynn made and destroying them, no harm, no foul. So the copies would be destroyed, that would be good, and the students could still use the programs in the labs, as well as the teachers utilizing those software programs in the lab. Cons of this would be that the teachers would never fully understand their violations and the consequences from what they were doing. And so it could easily happen again. Like, oh, we did it one time, nothing happened, just a little slap on the hand, and it would likely happen again. The third one, contacting the computer software program and explaining the situation. So the pros of this is the school is trying to make the situation right, acknowledging that they did something wrong, they violated the law, they're trying to make it right. Teachers learn lessons and attend training. The policy of the school is revamped and or created if it's not there. Cons of this, though, is the school is going to have to find money in their budget to pay for the software. Overall, in looking at the options and choosing the best option, for me, it was kind of a no-brainer, and I chose this option based on the fact that the school does not have a copyright policy and the teachers were not aware of the policy per se specific to the school. So contacting the computer software program and explaining the situation what I would do. I would make sure that this was implemented to all stakeholders by presenting my facts, along with the pros and cons of all the options, and ultimately the best option for the students, the staff, and the community, and explaining my reasoning for that. I would make sure that I talked with the superintendent as well as the Board of Education about the decision before I would do anything. But I feel like I have acknowledged the fault in the school, as I feel like that is a very ethical thing to do in doing what's right, and then revamping the policy and sending staff to training to prevent legal issues from happening in the future. So in implementing this plan, the first thing that I would do would be to discuss with my superintendent and the school board about calling the software program and figuring out where the money is going to come from. Because like I said, this wasn't planned in the budget, for this, and these programs were paid for by the PTA. So if it involved going to the PTA for more money, that's something that we would have to do just to figure out how to make it right. After that, then I would call the software program, acknowledging the mistake, and then how, as a principal, that I plan to make it right. Now, like I said, I'm the one that's doing all the calling as the principal, because I am assuming within this case study that there's not a policy in place and the teachers were not aware of the consequences of their actions. So after calling the software program, and hopefully they take it well and they allow us to pay for the copies that were made, and make it right in that way, I would then schedule a meeting with all of my school staff, informing them of the situation. This does put certain teachers on the spot, but I think that it's important that all staff should know that this isn't taken lightly, and you kind of have to use these teachers as an example, and then hopefully they don't do it again. So I would review the copyright laws and fair use policy in general with them. Then I would review the school's copyright policy. Now, if there wasn't one already, we would definitely have to write one and go over that so that everybody understands. Ask for questions and clarify any misunderstandings. And even with this, I might bring up some other court cases that have happened, and some examples of where students of schools and teachers were violating the copyright law, just to give them some idea of other things that could happen or could come up. I would then explain the plan moving forward. So what the policy is, how it's going to be implemented, and what teachers need to be doing to be following that policy. And then I would send emails to the teachers that were specifically involved in the situation to meet with them individually regarding their write-up. Because like I said, even though there's not a policy, they knew what they were doing was wrong, and that shouldn't be taken lightly or go unnoticed. And so even if they're not in their year of being evaluated, they can still have a write-up that goes in their folder, and is there for when their formal evaluation takes place. After all of that with the staff, I would then talk with the PTA at their next meeting, explaining copyright laws and why we have to follow them. And, if we need to purchase more, asking them, do they have any ideas? Can they fundraise? And just informing them of why we can't just, yeah, you want to spread that money as thin as you can and use it because we don't have very much, but we have to be legal and we have to be ethical within our decisions that we're making at the school. For Plan B, if that didn't all go as well as I feel like it should or would, so say the software company does not take the news lightly and they want to take the case to court, then that would be the case. That's up to them. We violated the law, but hopefully within that we could get it taken care of to where it wasn't too costly for us. But we would have to accept our consequences. Even if this is the case, teacher licenses could be at stake as well as their jobs. So, hopefully they do understand and take that, but, doesn't always happen. So in conclusion, I just put this up here for copyright and fair use and how important it is, but it's not something that's always talked about within schools. And just even, within my years of teaching, we go over the policy and everything, but then it's not really ever come back to us very often. It's just kind of brushed under the rug, or, you just don't do it. You don't hear of it as often as some other policies. But within my interlocal that I work for, if a teacher does violate copyright law, it is up to the teacher to, if they get in trouble with it, the school does not, like the attorneys with our interlocal, do not back the teacher. So if that was the case in this case study, then there would be a lot more pressure put on Mrs. Lynn to correct the situation. Here is the reference that I used for my presentation. I will move myself out of the way. Thank you.